Overtime Mental Health Outreach, a faith-based organization designed to provide information and support while encouraging hope and faith. You can find out more about us by logging onto our website at www.igbatt.com or giving us a call at 240-432-6763. I'm Arnetta Legree.
And I'm Corrine Kelly.
And welcome to It's Getting Better All the Time. Today, we're going to be talking about the topic of shame.
Shame can be defined by Webster as a painful emotion caused by consciousness of guilt, shortcoming, or impropriety. It's a sense of inferiority. People who have to cope with shame on a regular basis feel as if they are the ones that have a problem. That if they speak up or draw attention to themselves in some way, everyone will know that they have a problem. And we want to encourage you that somewhere along the way, all of us deal with shame. And we want to talk about shame in the negative and the positive tonight.
Because in the negative, shame can be a really painful emotion.
Yes.
I think many of us have had things that have happened to us or things that are going on with us now that cause us to be embarrassed or cause us to not feel good about ourselves, to cause us to feel that it's something that we did to bring whatever is happening to us on ourselves. And we want you to know that unfortunately things do happen in life, but you don't have to be embarrassed. You don't have to feel shame about it. It wasn't your fault, and it is not your fault. So you can move forward despite the shame.
So we want to talk tonight about some ways how shame really can impact us. Number one, shame can cause us to feel angry, to withdraw, to feel resentful of others. Shame can cause us to overcompensate or to try to be perfect in ways of erasing the feelings of shame that we have on the side of us. Shame can keep us from acknowledging the fact that we have a problem or situation. And it also can keep us from moving forward and becoming what God wants us to be. And in the midst of that, we were talking about the shame feeling and making you feel angry or withdrawn. Many times the withdrawal is a great one. And it's the thing of withdrawing because we don't want anyone to know. Like, anybody know this happened to me? And you begin to come out of your personality because you're putting on this facade to impress others for the sake of them not knowing
what's going on with you.
Absolutely.
And when we look at anger, anger is a defense that we use against shame. We get angry to mask how we're really feeling inside. Inside I feel really embarrassed about the fact that maybe I don't have as nice clothes as maybe someone else does. Inside I feel embarrassed about having a mental illness, or I'm embarrassed, ashamed of my parents, so I become angry, I act out. And that anger, again, is just a mask for what's really going on inside. And I think a lot of times when we see someone who is really angry, our first reaction is to become angry back, or just say, oh, that's an angry young man, or that's an angry young woman.
That's a mean child.
Right, exactly. But we have to realize that anger many times is a mask for other emotions.
Absolutely. And
begin to put ourselves in the place of the other person. Really try to understand what's going on with them. Understand them right where they are. Especially when we talk about children a lot of times, they may not come to you and say, this is what's going on. You may get a lot of the anger, a lot of the acting out, and all that is just a cover-up for how they're feeling inside.
And they may not even know how to express how they're feeling, or they haven't had anyone in their life that they feel like they can trust to be able to even share. Because so many times, unfortunately, we live in a society that when we know about fallacies of one another, we want to use them against them instead of showing them how to overcome in the things that they're dealing with.
Right. And just like any other negative emotion, shame can either cause us to move forward, either move forward in God or to not move forward in God. Because we're talking about the negative aspects of shame, it can keep us from being all that God wants us to be. Because many times in our walk, in our life, there will be situations that come up that God will require us to take a risk. And when we use the word risk, we are not talking about any harmful or negative behaviors. We're talking about those things that God may order for our lives to move us out of our comfort zone.
Yeah, Abraham took a risk. You know, the Lord told him to get up and move away from his kinfolk. He didn't know where he was going.
Right.
He didn't have a MapQuest to show him how to get to where he was going. God just told him to go. And he had to be willing to take the risk. And in that risk that he took, it was trusting God that God knows what he's doing with my life. And he knows which way to take me. For the Lord knows the way that we take. So there's a difference in just going out there haphazardly, taking risk. And then after you get out there, you wonder, what are you going to do? And with no directions. And not to know. But Abraham had directions from the Lord.
Right. You know, and again, maybe there's someone watching us, maybe you had to give a speech. You know, and the first time you gave a public speech, it didn't go so well. You know, people laughed at you. And after that, you're like, you know, I'm not going to do this again. But to keep doing it. You know, keep doing it. But that shame can keep us from our destiny, can keep us from moving forward. And when we allow those feelings of shame to keep us from moving forward, we even become angry at ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
I shared with my Sunday school class on yesterday, I said, learn to laugh at yourself. We all make mistakes. But if you beat yourself well, sometimes we're too hard on ourselves. And I said, if you can learn to laugh at it yourself, and that laughter would be a cushion, it will help you to get rid of the shame. You know, but if you're going to sit there and sulk in it and find out all the reasons and why not, and have the anger, the resentment, the withdrawing and whatever, you make it worse.
Right.
Okay. But if you can look back, it's okay. Yeah, I did do that. You know, and I'm not saying that there are not things in our lives that we really should be ashamed of.
Right, exactly.
There are. And in being ashamed of those things, you know, be ashamed enough not to go back and do it again. You know?
There's no shame in being a abused spouse. You know, I think many times you may be a person, maybe you're married, your husband is abusive, or your wife is abusive towards you, and it's like, people look at you, what is wrong with you? You know, you're just so stupid. But there's nothing wrong, there's nothing to be ashamed of. You know, unfortunately, things like that happen. You may have been a victim of abuse. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You may be living with a mental illness. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And people may say, listening to me, that you don't know what I'm going through. And I may or may not. But there are people out there who do. Because for every situation, negative situation that you have encountered, I have encountered, there is someone out there who has encountered the same situation and has used that negative situation to turn it into a positive.
And that's how a lot of programs have come about. Because of someone going through something and wanting to be a help to somebody else. And that's what he wants to do with our lives.
Right.
He wants to use, God wants to use every situation that's ever come up in our lives to help somebody else in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But it's, are we willing? You know, are we willing to surrender ourselves to Him and be led of Him to show us which way to go?
Because I've seen situations where people, family members, are living with a mental illness, or a spouse or whatever, and people are so embarrassed, they're so ashamed of it, that they literally kill the family because they don't get out and get the help that they need. They don't get out and join groups and talk to people. So they keep everything inside the family. You know, they don't want anybody to know, hey, my child's going through this. So they wear themselves out trying to put up this front. When the reality is, again, there's nothing to be ashamed of. And it's going to take a process of you realizing, you know, in fact, there is nothing to be ashamed of. It's a process to get to the point where I can laugh at myself.
And most things that all of us have endured in our families, somewhere along the way, if it's no more than one, somebody has experienced it, if we be honest with ourselves, you know. We want to feel like, you know, this is a totally different and unusual family over here because they're going through this. But if you really go back and you look, it may not be right in your generation, but somewhere along the way it's been in there.
Definitely.
And we're not, none of us are exempt from things happening to us.
Exactly, exactly. Number 3, shame can keep us living in the past or in the shadow of what could happen. You know, something happened to me negatively in the past. I go through life trying to cover that up. I don't want people to know my past. I'm embarrassed about what has happened. But by doing that, I'm allowing the past to control my future. I can't be totally free because I'm embarrassed about something that happened a long time ago. I may have a prison record. I don't want anybody to know I was in prison. You know? Or I may, again, been victim of abuse. I don't want anybody to know that. And so I go through life putting up this front. But again, fronts, it takes a lot of work to put up, and sooner or later they come down.
And then one of the things that that happen is if the shame doesn't come out in anger and resentment towards others, I hide it in here, and then I begin to break down my body, begin to be sickly, I begin to have problems, and maybe migraine headaches, it may be depression, and maybe some of these, and I'm not saying there isn't a clinical depression, that's not what I mean, but some of the things that people go through is because of just that, you know, not dealing with their shame will even make them deny their own self what has happened.
And you know, I can't read well, so I'm ashamed to go get the help that I need. You know, that can be a positive way. You know what? I'm ashamed. I can't read well. You know what? I'm not going to let the shame hold me back. I'm going to sign up for an educational class or whatever. So that, again, shame can be used positively if we will allow it.
Yeah. And many people with, I shouldn't say many, but sometimes people that are dealing with a loved one that has a mental illness, and I'm finding out that dealing with things that deal with the mind, we have a tendency, we're in a society where everything is so intellectual that we would rather not be seen with, we say we love our loved one, but I don't want anybody to see them with me, see me with them, you know, because I don't know what they're going to think, you know, or if it's, especially if they grow, okay, but if they're a child, you know, you want to keep them in seclusion, you don't want anybody to, which is very hurtful, you know, you're bringing on, adding insult to injury, you're teaching this child more about shame than they need to know.
Because they internalize it.
Right. And then you're causing them to have low self-esteem because sometimes they're already dealing with and going through with mental things with themselves and trying to decipher what is good and what is bad. And then I come along and treat them that way and make them really feel even worse than what they felt before.
Definitely. Another thing that we talk about, again, shame can keep us on the defensive. We go around trying to protect ourselves. You know, we don't want anybody to know that this is going on. Well, how's your child doing? Okay, well, I don't want to talk about it. You know, oh God, I pray that no one asks me what my child is doing. I pray no one asks me what my wife is doing. Because you don't want to say, well, you know, my wife has a mental illness and she's doing good, but she still has a mental illness. We don't want to be honest because we're embarrassed. We don't want people to know. And again, so for that reason, we're on the defense all the time.
Yeah, they may not be my friend anymore if they know this is what I'm dealing with.
Exactly. And shame, again, all of us, we have in us the ability to overcome anything that we might be dealing with. And I know when I say that, people are, no, not really, we all don't have it. No, we all have it. We all may not have the same gift, or we all may not be able to overcome the same way, but we can all find meaning in our life. You know, I may have a mental illness. No, I may not be cured from my mental illness. I may have a other negative situation that I wish I didn't have, but the reality is that I do. And once I begin to accept to have a mental illness, accept the fact whatever the negative situation is, I can begin to move forward and move out of this bondage of shame. Because that's what shame is. It's a bondage. It keeps us hostage. It keeps us held to the past. It keeps us held to putting up all these defenses. You know, it keeps us limited in our lives. Because if I'm afraid to be embarrassed, if I'm ashamed, I'm not going to do but so many things. I'm not going to move but so far because I don't want my secret to come out.
That's right.
I don't want people to know whether the case I can't read, I can't drive, I can't, all the different things that I can't do, or the things that I'm trying to hide.
And you know, the interesting part about it though is, as we go along, sometimes in the midst of trying to cover it up, we are totally oblivious to the fact that somebody still knows.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking while you're talking of an incident when someone was a dear friend of mine, and something the person did, and I had to figure a way to ask them the question, not could they, but how well did they read. So we still need to know in dealing with someone when we recognize that they're trying to cover up something, how to be able to reach out to them without making them feel more shameful and condemned in the situation that they're dealing with. So when I asked them, the person, how well, and they says, I don't read very well. I said, okay. I said, we can work with that. And they looked at me, and it was almost amazement to them, because in the past, that's not how they were treated with it. If they were made fun of, they were put down for it, and made mockery of almost through it. And in dealing with the person, I would take time out to show little things to them, to show them. My attitude with them was, recognize first of all that I'm your friend, and I'm here to help you, okay? And if you can deal with me on those, because see, it's going to take something on both parts. Excuse me, if you can deal with me on that level, and not think about the shame and the embarrassment and the condemnation that you had before with going through this, and I don't intend to hurt you. Now we have to realize that each one of us are human, and sometimes we can still do things not quite the right way. To help someone, we can be sincerely wrong. But in helping them, the person began to realize that I really wasn't. They had to gain my trust to know that I wasn't going to hurt them, and to be able to help them through this situation that they were dealing with. So even though they could not themselves read as well as they needed to and wanted to, they would ask me, could you just read this for me? Okay, so said I couldn't put myself out there as a friend for them, and then when they come with you, I don't be bothered with you. I don't have time to do that for you. So it's a sacrifice on both parts. Okay, and I use that example because you use the reading. Okay, there's another situation where
and we use a lot of different examples because we realize there are a lot of people that's watching us or listening to us who are dealing with a lot of different things, and I think sometimes maybe because I can read, I forget that there are some people who can't.
That's right.
Just because I have a job, there are people who don't have a job. So again, we try to open it up and use a lot of different experiences because there are a lot of different people listening to us.
Right. Even the one that you use, about having gone to jail, I'm never going. Nobody's ever going to do. Nobody's going to understand. They're not going to give me a job. And have you given yourself the chance? Get to the place that you get past the shame of it, and sell yourself. Okay, and in that situation, I'm still kind of working with, but because they have to have their self-esteem built up.
Right, exactly.
So
there's always a way.
Yeah, so but how much are we willing to give of ourselves to help the next person? And this is what it's all about. We talk, as she said about, as Arnetta said, a lot of things on this TV broadcast, and because there's a broad horizon of situations that are going on. And one may deal with it one way and somebody might deal with it another, but all of us can glean to be able to help one another, that we can all overcome things that we're going through.
And the thing is, well, how do I overcome shame? You overcome it one situation at a time by not letting situations hold you back. If there's something comes up that you want to do or you feel led to do, you just go ahead and do it. You're not going to do it perfectly the first time. You are going to have a lot of insecurities the first time. But you do it the second time, the third time, the fourth time. The more you do it, the more comfortable you become with it. The better you become with it, the less self-conscious you become.
Same thing with when you get out there and a child with a bicycle. We know that all they know is they want to ride the bicycle. Okay, they have no idea, and it looks exciting. They see someone else on it, and they're having a good time and enjoying. You know, the wind just blowing them as they go along on this bicycle, and that's all they see. Okay, but they don't realize that first you they have to start with some training wheels, and sometimes because they're excited and full of zeal, they think they can do it, and they don't need any help. You know, they get out there and they fall down, and they realize, oh, it's a little more to this than what I anticipated. Then they're willing to come back. So even in that, you know, we can get frustrated. Wouldn't we do the same thing when they tie a shoe? I remember, you know, trying to help someone. I can do it, and they want to tie the shoe, and they're going to show me they could do. Had no clue to what to do. But in their mind, because they had sit and watch, it's amazing. We can look at somebody else do something and just think we automatically know it. But they didn't know the mechanics. So I had to wait.
But they learned the mechanics as they did it as time went on.
But I had to wait. Still had to wait for them to go through their fussing and their frustrating and sitting down and going to show me that they can do it for themselves. And then when they settled down, I said, okay, now let me show you. But we do that, and I was getting ready to say with children, and sometimes people don't even do it with children, you know, but in most cases, we don't have the patience that we need to deal with someone to help them come out of their shame.
And we don't even have the patience to deal with ourselves sometimes. You know, I mentioned the fact that sometimes you may just have to do it, and the more you do something, the better you get at it. But it's a process, even to get to that point. For some people, you can't do it. You may need to talk with someone. You may need to sit down with your pastor, with your therapist, a counselor, a friend, and that's okay. To talk through what's really going on. To talk through what is hindering you, what's holding you back. You know, shame is just one emotion. Oftentimes there's a root that's attached to shame. And by sitting down and talking to someone, you can maybe kind of come to the realization of what really is holding you back. And you may need to talk with someone for a period of time before you can get to the point where you can begin to take steps. And so again, there are many different ways to overcome shame. And what might work for me may not work for you. So I want you to understand that, again, you don't want to get into comparing yourself with someone else. You know, for some people, it's real easy for them to get up and talk to 1,000 people. There are some people who have been the victims of abuse, just horrific abuse. Yes. But for them, they deal with it differently. They're able to talk about it. They're public speaking. They're able to share it. You may not be able to, and that's okay. You don't have to compare yourself with someone else. But just know that you do have a purpose and that there is a recovery process for you. Your process may be different from someone else, but there is a process. You can begin to take steps. There may be baby steps. You may take one steps. Exactly. You may take one step this month. You may not be able to take another step until next year. You may have setbacks in between, and that's okay. The thing is that you keep telling yourself, you know what, I don't want to live like this. I'm going to get some help. And then, like I said, there are plenty of people out there, whether it's therapists, pastors, friends, who you can talk to if you need to do that, and that's okay. You know, whether you're Christian, not Christian, or whatever, you know, you can do that. And I think that's important.
So, you know, what we're doing, we want to encourage you to, if you're dealing with the shame of your past or something that you're even in right now, you need to today make a commitment to yourself that I will not be in this state any longer, and begin to get some strategies to take you forward to get out of it. But the first thing you need to do is recognize, yes, you are in a shame situation. And number two, make the commitment to be able to move forward.
And that's what it's going to take, is just making the commitment in your mind. You know, and then once you make it up in your mind, then that's part of the battle. That's half the battle right there.
That's right.
Because then once you make it up in your mind that I'm not going to sit here and allow myself to be limited by past thoughts, then you can begin, like we said before, to take those steps, baby steps, half steps, whatever steps. You know?
I want to encourage you to don't let your pride get in the way. If you need to talk to someone, all of us need someone in our lives to be able to talk to. You know, it's something else, something different, you know, because my thoughts, I have nothing to what's the word I'm looking
balance
for? Right, my thoughts. All right, they're my thoughts, okay? And I can convince my thoughts are the best thoughts.
Right.
All right. Right. But if I have someone say, wait a minute, let's evaluate what you just said. Let's talk about it. And sometimes just talking to someone, being able to vent, brings me, and it's like it's a relief. It's like, it's not that you're dumping your mess onto someone else. We don't want you to feel that way either.
Right.
But now that I got it out, I feel so much better. I feel relief. You'll be amazed at the weight that will come off of your shoulders, the heaviness that will be relieved from your heart, the stress that will be destroyed in your mind by being able to share.
And sometimes, even after you share, the situation may still be the same, but your thoughts have changed. Like you said, you get that relief. So the person you talk to, well, I don't want to go talk to them. They don't have the answer. But sometimes the answer is lies, and you just being able to talk about it.
That's right.
You want to close that?
Okay. So, as we said tonight, this is It's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach. You can reach us on www.igbatt.com or 240-6763. We're really looking forward to hearing from you. As always, we're glad and thank you for taking the time to hear us on tonight. If something has been said to help you to make some great changes in your life, be able to move forward and come forward with a God-given purpose for your life. Thank you. God bless you.